There you go. All rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would stay standing for one moment. I have a moment of silence for Gene Savage, who died a few weeks ago. He was a retired Tarrytown police sergeant and a over 50-year member of Conquer Hook and Ladder in our firefighting. Thank you. Yeah. So it was a horn. We don't have any changes or additions to the agenda. We'll begin with any board or miscellaneous reports.
Yeah, so there will be a census job fair. That'll be this tomorrow. No, I'm sorry. It was yesterday. It's tomorrow.
Pick a day.
It's tomorrow.
Yesterday.
It'll be. I'm sorry. It'll be. I'm a little confused what day it is, but I'm here. It'll be tomorrow from 11 to 4 to to get local residents to apply for jobs with the Census Bureau. We're going to have a presentation in a few minutes about the census, but it's very important that we get people out. So please tell everyone to come out and apply if you have time. It's worth, even if people are working, people can work nights, evenings, and weekends. They want to make some extra money and contribute to a very important cause.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, well, let me get my dates straight here. I don't want to make it be a different day. All right, I just wanted to report that we had a wonderful event down at the river, down at Pearson Park this weekend. It was the Trunk or Treat. And we had lots of we had cars down there decorated, and with lots of candy and stuff to go out to the kids. We must have had about 200 kids show up. I mean, it was constant. It was a constant flow. We had hot dogs and treats, and we had a DJ, and it was a really fun event for everybody who came out. So we'll be doing it again next year, and we need more people to decorate their cars and come on down and help us out with that. Now we also have coming up, of course, our famous Halloween parade this coming Saturday, October 26th at 5:30 p.m. Should it be foul weather, it will be the next day, Sunday, at the same time. Please come out and support it, or dress up and come march in it. Even better. You really want me to do the turkey trot too?
You want to do the big?
Are you doing well? Coming up as well, just to put on your calendars, is our 5K Tarrytown Turkey Trot. That's hard to say. Sunday, November 24th. Starts at 9:30 a.m. We have a wonderful new course that takes down in front of the river. And I really want to encourage kids from 7 to 9 to come out for the 1 mile gobble trot. You do not need to gobble while you trot. You just have to run. And that'll be it for now. Thanks.
Yeah, you forgot to mention it's the 18th annual Halloween.
Oh, it's the 18th annual Halloween parade. Thanks, Tom.
We also had a great event last weekend, the Scarecrow Making.
Oh, we had a great scarecrow. We also had about 55 kids decorating the windows in town.
I think they ran out of Scarecrow frames.
They did
right?
within the first half hour.
Yeah.
We were plumb picked
Right.
over, yeah.
Yeah, it was a
We'll
huge
have to
turnout.
we'll have to do about 200 next year.
Tom, anything? Anything on this side?
No, just feeling my Yankees. That's it.
Okay. I have a couple things. One, the mobile shredder is coming back to Tarrytown on November 16th, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Green Street parking lot. First come, first serve. There's also the fall household recycling, or the recycling fall drop-off days? The fall recycling drop-off days at Rye Playland on November 9th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's where you can get rid of any chemicals, auto fluids, things that don't go in the garbage, in the regular trash, electronic waste, fire extinguisher, propane tanks. Check out the westchestergov.com website for all the details, but that is November 9th in Rye Playland. As I've said before, I went to this when they had it at the Murph in Yonkers, and they were incredibly efficient, and they did a great job. It went very quickly, it was great. It got rid of a lot of stuff. And early voting is coming up for the first time in New York this Saturday. And the days and hours are as follows: Saturday and Sunday, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. And next Saturday and Sunday from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. And for Tarrytown residents, Dobbs Ferry, Village Hall, I think this is Village Hall, right? Dobbs Ferry Village Hall, right? Dobbs Ferry Village Hall is the site where if you want to early vote, that's where you would go. And finally, as the leaves start falling off the trees, I would urge people to mulch them in place. It's a waste of time and energy
Love them and
to
leave them.
haul them away. What?
Love 'em
Love them
and
and
leave
leave them.
Mow them into your lawn.
Yeah, Rich
I'm
and
a-
I both do it. Save incredible amount of time. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is, and it's good for the lawn. It
Yeah.
returns the nutrients back
Puts
to
a
the
lot of
soil.
nitrogen back into your lawn. It
Yep.
saves on your fertilizer.
Yep. It looks a little dicey for a little while, but before you know it, it's gone, and
In
by
springtime-
spring, you have no idea that you ever did it. It's
Yep.
pretty remarkable, actually, how well it works.
And for those that don't do it, when are they putting it down on the street?
We will have the schedule posted
Not on the street.
Well,
Don't put your
on the
leaves on the
curbs, on the
street.
curbside.
Right,
On
yeah.
the curbside.
Which is a real problem, though. The people do put their leaves
Yes.
piled on the streets.
It
It's a
does
problem.
create slide factors,
Right,
you know.
and it clogs up drains.
Exactly right.
Takes out parking spaces. If it's dry, it becomes dangerous. So do not pile leaves on the street. We still are vacuuming them up.
Yep.
But is there a schedule?
There's a schedule.
We will be posting the schedule
We'll post the
shortly on the website.
But mulch them in place. It's way better.
Yes.
Okay, we'll begin with, Rich, do you have a report?
Just a few things. The village is participating in a village-wide, what we call Secure Cam program. Businesses and homeowners can register with our police department. That link is available on the website under the police department pages. And if you have further information about the program, you could call our detective division at 631-1514. We have a census presentation coming up, but we did have a discussion at the village officials committee meeting. And one of the discussions we had is that the town of Greenberg is already doing a complete count committee. So there was a discussion and agreement that the town would allow us to, each village, to have a representative on their complete count committee so that we would have more of a town-wide presence and participation. And just a reminder, this is the last board meeting we're gonna have before Halloween. So we would ask everybody to be cognizant and careful out there of all the little monsters running around trying to collect candy. Dress.
Those are kids, right?
The little kids, yeah. Having my own little monster who's now in college, it's all in good fun. The intent is for everybody to be safe, careful, be cautious, careful about what you eat. If candy's open, don't eat it. Make sure your kids are dressed appropriately and have reflective bands and other things that would make them visible to cars. If anybody's driving around on Halloween night, they should take extra caution not to speed, especially through residential neighborhoods. We don't want to hit any kids or parents or anybody going to and from homes to collect
Or
candy.
monsters.
The little monsters, the lovable little monsters. And then just a request for a brief executive session at the end.
Rich,
for-
are the security cameras, the police are requesting anybody who has one in their home
To register,
to register it with them,
yes.
so they can call upon it if they
So
need to?
if there is a crime, if there is an accident, if there's an injury, things of that nature, the police department can work with the homeowner or the property owner to include that footage as part of the record and to the investigations. It's free to everybody,
Got
but
it. Thank you.
it's already proven to be helpful in a couple of situations, including, I think, robberies or burglaries? Yes.
You know what's interesting, a lot of people have, the Ring,
Yeah.
A door
so,
cam.
so the door cameras,
Okay.
you're not talking about that, though.
Well, I think that could be
Yeah, I think
included.
so.
Yes, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, that could be included. So that's all I have for now.
Okay. We'll begin with our guest, Norma Drubin, the Commissioner of Planning for the County of Westchester. And you're going to talk about the census. And there's going to be a presentation on those screens, not behind. We don't have to move. It's not going to come up here.
No.
Okay, just on the TV screens. Okay.
So thank you for having me this evening. Census 2020 is coming. April 1st of 2020 will be Census Day, so I am taking the opportunity to get out to as many municipalities as possible to give you a heads up about some of the new things that are happening with this census and some of the issues that we are concerned about and why we are encouraging participation in complete count committees throughout the county. So if the president, oh, there, see, look, there it goes. Wow. I feel like I'm going to point this in your eye over there to get to the laptop over there. So the United States has been conducting censuses since 1790. This is not new. This is actually our 24th census that will be done. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. Fun history fact, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, this was one of the many things that they fought over, in fact, how the census should be conducted. So, but the reason we do the census is that it deals with the apportionment and redistricting of many, many districts, not just how many Congress people we have, but also our own local county legislators. By the county's constitution, each legislative district is supposed to have approximately 50,000 residents. So it's important for us to make sure that there's even a balanced board of legislators. It also deals with the equitable distribution of funds. There was a George Washington Institute of Policy report from December of 2018 that spoke to $880 billion being distributed in 2016 through the 26 federal agencies, just based strictly on census data. Your own sales tax collection from the county is based on 2010 census data. So again, when you see what some of my concerns are and what some of the numbers are that we're seeing, you want to make sure we're not going to lose ground and have your numbers go backwards. We're definitely concerned. And then CDBG and other data sets all rely on census data and the other census surveys that get done by the Census Bureau, including the American Community Survey data. Okay. There we go. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so the first census, the 2020 census, what's new? This will be the first census where you will be invited to respond online. You will actually not be sent a paper form in the mail until the 4th mailing that goes out to you. You're going to get a letter with a code specific to your unit, your housing unit, and you will be invited to respond on your smartphone. You can call a telephone line to call and respond, or you can go on a computer and respond. We are hoping that as many as 95% of the population will actually respond online and will give us, then the Census Bureau, the opportunity to see updated data much, much quicker because it's that much less data input that has to get done by Census Bureau employees. So this is the first opportunity that you'll have to actually input census online. If this is also the first time the Census Bureau is allowed to ask building managers and to ask your neighbors if in fact they cannot get a reply for your housing unit or any housing unit in your neighborhood. They are allowed to look at other government records, but it does not work the other way. They cannot share their census data with any other federal department. All employees of the Census Bureau, and by the way, I am joined tonight by Dr. Owen Border from the Census Bureau. He's one of the community specialists in the Westchester area, and so he'll be able to answer any questions I might not be able to answer if you have any. But the Census Bureau will be allowed to use HUD records, IRS records, Social Security records, but they will not be able to share the data that they collect with any other department. So the Census Bureau, the Census 2020, is really only going to be a total of 9 questions. We're in the middle right now of preparing our own county website for 2020. On there, we will put a sample of the Census Bureau's there's a sample survey out right now that they have on their website, so we'll put it on there. The citizenship question, as you can see, it's been crossed out. The courts have now blocked that question from being on there. But in actuality, that question has been asked before, and it actually is asked on the American Community Survey data. The Census Bureau started working on 2020 census in 2011. This is not new for them. It takes a long time to develop all that technology associated with responding online. But the Census Bureau also is very active with a whole host of other surveys that they do. The census of jails, the building permit surveys, a whole host, there's a bunch of business surveys that they do. But the American Community Survey is the most popular. That's where, on a monthly basis, they survey approximately 300,000 households throughout the country and get much more detailed data. But the problem is that the data is not nearly as accurate because, again, they're only surveying approximately 300,000 households. So the ACS data sometimes has a margin of error greater than the number itself. So it gives us a little cause for concern. I just want to give you a refresher, and anybody who might be watching this, a refresher about census terminology. And I'm hoping that this will help people also understand confidentiality and the extent to which their own data will be protected. In the middle of the slide there, you see a census block. When you think of a block, it is in fact a city block. If I were to walk outside, walk down to the end, make a left, walk to the end, make a left, make another left, and I'd arrive back at this door. That is a block. So in fact, the person who lives across the street from you is in an entirely different census block, which, when aggregated up, the next level of census is the census block groups, and then it's the census tracts. And I give you the optimum size for the block groups is about 1,500 people, but a block group can have anywhere between 600 and 3,000 people. If you remember your CDBG grants, they are done by block groups. So, again, somebody who lives across the street from you, because they're in another block, might be in another block group. They might be in another census tract then, too, because the census block groups are aggregated up into census tracts. And so the census tracts have anywhere between 1,200 and 8,000 people in them, with an optimum size of about 4,000. Try again. There we go. So the census tracts are unique to the numbers are unique to each county. They start at the southernmost part of the county. So for us, they start in the city of Yonkers, and they kind of work their way north with the numbers. In preparing for the census, the county planning department, as a local census affiliate, has been hard at work for a couple of years now, working on data. One of the first things that we've done is a review of the local update of census addresses, or LUCA. This is my first concern as it relates to the census. As you can see from the bottom in the middle there, we looked at 370,000 residential addresses in this county in the summer of 2018 to prepare the Census Bureau. What we did was we actually made maps of the streets that didn't exist in 2010, so that we had a sense what addresses, what new areas had housing developments all across the county. But then we also looked at what streets existed in 2010 and don't exist now. So again, we saw where development and redevelopment has occurred. But we looked at a total of 370,000 addresses. Now again, the basement is a unit. The upstairs might be another. The attic might be a unit. Over a garage might be a unit. So we found a whole host of housing units out there. But in reality, according to the Census Bureau, there are officially only 345,885 housing units in Westchester County. There is a disconnect of 24,000 housing units that the Census Bureau doesn't necessarily have an official record of. Now, one of the things that made us do as the planning department, again, as a census affiliate, was to take a look at the local surveys that our local municipalities were doing, and in reality, we found that there were 7 municipalities who were not doing the monthly online survey, reporting to the Census Bureau of all the building permits. 2 of those were 2 of our major cities. One was another city, 2 more were villages, and 1 was a town. So there were, in fact, a number of local municipalities that were not reporting the census correctly in terms of the building permits. So we actually did trainings this year, and I want to thank the Village of Tarrytown for hosting one of those trainings about 2 weeks ago, yes. You hosted Dobbs Ferry and Hastings and a bunch of other villages where they actually came and got to learn about the right way to complete those census surveys. And in fact, we've now done 2 more trainings. The Village of Portchester hosted us last Thursday, and the City of New Rochelle hosted us last Tuesday. And one of the things that we found is even municipalities that have been reporting learned that they were not reporting correctly. In fact, we found out that some municipalities were reporting 1 building permit when it was a multifamily building. So that's part of the reason I'm guessing that we are missing those 24,000 housing units. I'm sure that's not all of them. I'm sure there's some amount of illegal housing units that nobody has building permits for throughout this county. But the bottom line is 24,000, even if they're not even all occupied, some of them are going to have more than 1 person in them, but 24,000 more people is the difference between the county being under 1 million and over 1 million residents. So for us, that's really important that we make sure everybody is counted. But that is my number one concern, and I want municipalities to be aware of the fact that we have found this disconnect. We should all be worried about the data. Josh, there is something showing up on the screen over there.
Thanks. It's not showing again, so it's fine.
So in addition to the street addresses and the unit addresses that we did, the next level of data review that we had to do for the Census Bureau is what we call BAS, or the boundary and annexation data. We actually found that the Census Bureau had our surveys, had boundary lines wrong for some of our municipalities. What you have in front of you on the left is the city of New Rochelle, the middle is the town of Mamaroneck, and the right is the village of Larchmont. The blue is where the Census Bureau had the boundary line. The white is in reality the boundary line. So a whole street of residences of people living in the town of Mamaroneck have been being counted in the city of New Rochelle. Several areas of the village of Larchmont have been counted in the town of Mamaroneck. So the Census Bureau had their lines off. We actually submitted changes for the boundary and annexation data. We haven't heard whether they've been accepted or not, but hopefully they will make these corrections. So again, each town, each village, each municipality has the correct data. Another level of review that we've done is we had to do census designated places, which is areas that the municipalities have either hamlets or have identified business districts where they want to be able to take a look at that data specifically. For example, this town in Newcastle came to us and asked if they could have the Millwood and Chapacua both designated as census designated places, and they gave us the boundaries for those specific areas. So now they'll be able to get data specifically to the neighborhood that they call Millwood, and then specifically to the area that they call Chapacua, because they're not they're not anything more than a zip code right now. And then the other thing that we had to do was, remember I told you the census tracts, the ideal for census tracts is about 4,000 people. So the Census Bureau came to us and said, there's a couple census tracts that get a little on the large side, can we split some of them up? So we brought some of them to the city of Peekskill, just to use an example, and asked if we could split them, and we give them some ideas of how to split them, and they actually requested that we not split them. They said if they hit the 8,000, then next time around they would like to, but they'd like to be able to compare apples to apples. They want to see what the demographics were in 2010 and compare the same demographics in 2020. So we understand what that was about, but again, there is an optimum size for each of the census tracts and each of the levels of geography. So the Census 2020, again, I told you we started in 2011. There are many different phases of this. The Census Bureau itself is actually going, right now they call we're all doing in an education phase. We're all trying to get out and educate not just the municipalities, but the people about the fact that you're not going to get a form coming in the mail anymore. It's going to be really important that people understand that this is coming. And because how many people look at all that mail that they get every day and just throw it out? Your second mailing is going to be a postcard. How many people even look at postcards anymore? So it's going to be important that we start getting out this message. In fact, I'll go to the next slide. Thank you, Josh. Okay, well, so the next is, again, 95% of the households are going to get the invitation to respond. 5% are going to be households where they will, in fact, get forms or they're going to be visited. If you think about I have 4 children. None of my children will I be able to count in my household, and 3 of my children are students. My son and his wife are married. They're in their own household. They can fill out their own census. My 2 older daughters, they're 26 years old, they're both in graduate school, but they both live in private housing. So they have the responsibility to answer the census in their own housing unit. My daughter in Boston lives with 2 roommates, so we're curious to see, okay, which one of the 3 is going to get that census form and respond and make sure that they answer for all 3 of them. As opposed to my youngest daughter is in Washington, D.C. in college, but she lives in a dorm. So in reality, in that case, the school will in fact report on her. The schools will, a dorm is considered a group quarters. But again, for many adults in Westchester County, they don't realize that unless your child puts their head down at night and lives in your house on April 1st, you do not count them. They should be counted wherever they are in fact going to school.
So on April 1st.
on April 1st.
So on that note, I think
Yeah.
we brought this up, but how does that relate to hotels, and how does that relate to something like the EF
Hotels and hospitals, you actually would report for where your primary residence is.
school? Okay, what about the EF school? We do have long-term students there.
Yeah, in that case, those are considered group quarters. The Census Bureau will actually start counting the group quarters in February or March. You're going to actually get out there. Because assisted living facilities, the jails, there are a number of different facilities, not just the schools.
Even though EF is, the students are all foreign nationals.
Doesn't matter. People, if they are residing in the United States, they are supposed to be counted. Does not matter what they're, again, we're not asking the citizenship question.
Right.
So it doesn't
Right.
matter, and we have asked the question in the past, but that, yes, anybody who is residing in the United States on April 1st should be counted. In fact, there's even guidance for if you're born on that day or if you pass away on that day, what you're supposed to do, so.
Wow, I bet EF was not counted 10 years ago.
Well, they may not have been, but
Right.
again, the Census Bureau will be getting
Now we
out
know.
to those group quarters. We do know that the last time around, the Bedford prison actually wasn't counted.
Right.
Okay, at the right time or the right way. And then Manhattanville College as well was one of those places that came up when we were looking at the map, like, wait, something's wrong. So 10 years ago, we did actually catch those. They did go back and, get the data later. People will, even though Census Day is April 1st, people will actually have until the end of July to respond. But you're going to get 3 mailings before, the next slide actually has the schedule. You're going to get 3 mailings before April 1st. The Census Bureau's first mailing is going out on March 12th, followed by another mailing on March 16th, and another mailing on March 26th. So in reality, before Census Day, you're going to get 3 invitations to respond. And the sooner you respond, the less mailings you'll end up getting. But you're going to get that code in the mail with that first time. If you don't want to take it and respond on your own computer for whatever reason, you will have the ability to go to what we're going to call census hubs. We're going to identify areas where there are public computers available where people will be able to feel comfortable that they can go and respond to the census. The library system is working with us as an example. We have a number of high school students who have offered their services to help. And, again, when I need to do something, I call one of my children. So who better to help our senior citizens who are now looking at like I have to do this online, I have to do this on my smartphone, help. So, again, we're hoping that we'll be able to link with some of the library systems with some of these volunteers that are offering to make sure that the seniors, people have help at the centers, not filling out their forms for them unless they've specifically allowed somebody to help them, but just help somebody making sure they're getting to the website correctly, things like that. So again, the important thing for people to understand is that by April 1st, you'll have already seen 3 mailings. If in fact you don't respond by then, you will actually get the questionnaire in the mailing that goes out on April 8th. And then hopefully you'll respond then. If not, then there's one last mailing that will go out on April 20th that essentially says it's not too late, you can still do it. And that's when the visits will start. So starting in middle of April and going until the end of July, if you have not responded to the census, somebody's going to be knocking to your door. And so one of my points is, if you do not want somebody knocking on your door, respond to the census. If you don't trust that you're responding on your own computer at home, go to the library. Go someplace else. Go to one of the public places that computers will be available for people to be able to assist you and complete the census there. Oh, sorry. I thought I just hit it once. It's very sensitive, Josh. You got a good system here, but okay. So in preparing for the census in 2018 did a survey, what they call CBAM. So it's the Census Barriers, Attitude, Motivators Survey. And so they actually took a look at, are people going to respond? If so, what's going to make them respond? And if they're not going to respond, why are they not going to respond? And what would motivate them to respond? So they sent this questionnaire out to 50,000 households across the country, surveying or oversampling the Asians, Blacks, Hispanics, to be able to make sure that they get a good sense of what the attitudes and motivations are out there. Again, of 50,000 households, only 17,500 responded. So they did this in 2008. This is my number 2 reason for you why I'm really concerned about the census. In 2008, 14% of the responders said that they were not going to respond to the census. In reality, 24% did not respond. In 2018, 33% of the responders said that they were not going to respond. If we lose another 10%, that's 4 people out of every 10 that are not responding. Your numbers will all go backwards. Westchester County's numbers will all go backwards, which in reality we know is not the case. But if that's what's now, to dispel any concern, some concerns, this was done before the census question, citizenship question was resolved. So we are hoping that there may be a good number of people that now that they know the citizenship question will not be asked, will now in fact respond. But again, this is a big concern. If in reality we lose another 10% of people responding, then that's well, all I'm doing is pressing it once. Okay, so one of the questions people got asked are, how familiar are you with the census? Only 79% of the people who responded said that they were familiar with the census. That's 21% of the people who are not familiar with the census. Think about it. I mean, I deal with the census data all the time. We love data in the planning department. But my 26-year-olds that I mentioned were 16 10 years ago. My 19-year-old was 9. What did they know about completing the census? All right, so there's a whole young population that didn't have to worry about, didn't have to respond to this before. The good news is they get to respond on their smartphones this time around. So we in fact may actually get some people just because they get to respond on their smartphone, and it should literally take them, just a couple minutes to answer the 9 questions that are on there. But again, a big concern for us is the fact that only 79% of the population is aware of it. Thank you, Josh. We're going to put this down. So when asked, why would you not respond to the census? No, there's no surprises here. Apathy, concerns about data confidentiality and privacy, fear of repercussion, distrust in the government, and what's in it for me? Josh, thank you. So when we were asked why they would respond, this is actually going to help us with our marketing. Because 94% of the population said they would respond if they knew that census data was being used to help with funding for hospitals and healthcare. Fire departments, 92% said they would help it with the police departments and highways and roads. So again, understanding even schools hit a high 80% number there. So that helps us with our marketing. We know we can put pictures of children with backpacks on, and we can put senior citizens and fire departments. I think we're going to stay away from police departments just because. But I think, if we can put some hospital messaging out there. We are already working on the fact that we have over 300 county buses that we will be able to put ads on, our own ads. We also have 60 county bus shelters that we will be able to. And again, I told you the planning department, we love data. We have already mapped, and you'll see in a minute, the hard-to-count areas. Those are the areas in the 2010 census that had a lower than average response. So we've already taken all those hard-to-count areas in Westchester County. We've overlaid them with all the county bus routes. We've overlaid them with the bus shelters. We now know, in fact, how many people get on and off the buses at each of those shelters. And now we've also added the data of which of those areas are primarily Spanish-speaking. So now I can tell you which bus shelters I need to put Spanish ads in as opposed to English ads, which one will have a better community benefit and a better reach. Thank you. So there are hard-to-count areas all over the county. We can't even make sense as to why, there's one bright red one up in Yorktown. That means less than 50% of the population in that census tract responded. So I said there are areas all over the county. The Rockefeller Institute actually, I want to say back in May, issued a report about the 500 census tracts that they have determined will be the worst responders or the most difficult to count in this census. Westchester County had the #1 census tract. It's in the city of Yonkers. But the city of Mount Vernon was listed with the most census tracts on their list of 500 for the entire state. All right, so again, there's extreme worry on our part about our ability to get complete counts. If you look at the city of Mount Vernon, more than half the city is colored. And any area that's red had a response rate of less than 50%. I was at the Village of Elmsford just a couple of weeks ago. More than half the Village of Elmsford had a low response rate. So we're encouraging a lot of these municipalities to start the conversation. The Village of Elmsford actually put a board now up in their village hall so that there's a regular conversation and a regular mention now of the fact that the census is coming. And in their board meetings, that's very visible. So we do know that there are 18 local complete counts that are being set up. We're actually going to host a meeting of all of these complete count in early December. We just don't have that completely firmed up yet. But the county's complete count has been very, very active. Actually, Josh, if you want to go to the next. So the county's complete count committee has been very active since April 1st. I've now got over 30 members representing a whole host of different populations and different organizations and different municipalities on our complete count committee. But they've now broken up into 5 subcommittees, and I was chastised up in Yorktown that the seniors are always last, so I'm going to say them first. So one of the subcommittees is our seniors and persons with disabilities, because this is the first time they're going to respond on a computer. As I said earlier, I have to sometimes ask one of my kids to show me how to find something on a computer or how to do an app on a computer. So we're really concerned about people 65 and older, 75 and older, and their ability to understand not to get rid of that code when it comes in the mail. Now, if they do throw out the code, it's okay. They can still go online and find a place. Or they can call a phone and talk to a real person. And the Census Bureau is going to have the forms available in 15 languages? Or
correct. We have online, so we have vocal on 15 languages, and an additional 59 video will be supported by video and print.
So they are recognizing, yes, they are recognizing that there are many, many languages that are spoken in the United States. You know, in fact, we know in the city of Yonkers, there's an area that's Ukrainian. In the city of Mount Vernon, there's an area that's Haitian Creole. So we've actually started looking at those areas, those bright red areas. We did reconnaissance of those areas to see what's there. Are there apartment buildings where there's a whole neighborhood of people that are very, very closely knit and talk the same language or whatever it is? Which brings me to one important point. Tomorrow, you mentioned, is Census Recruitment Day. The Census Bureau is hoping 22,000 people across the country will apply for jobs tomorrow. Even in the Westchester Putnam area, the Census Bureau is going to be looking to hire over 6,200 people to help with the enumeration, to help with those counts of the homes where people haven't responded, either electronically or by phone or by the form itself. And so they're going to be hiring people at $21 an hour. Again, like you mentioned, nights and weekends works. But they're going to be looking, tomorrow is a big census recruitment day for them to be able to hire people. Encourage your local residents to apply. One of the reasons they're doing this recruitment now is because there is a background check that does take a little while to do, and with hiring 50,000 people across the country, it's going to take a long time for them to do that. And so, sorry, 500,000 people across the, yeah, 500,000 people across the country. But there's all different levels of jobs that they're going to be doing. What they're most actively looking for now, though, people who will be trained in January and February, and the people who will go out after April 1st and start helping with the count themselves. They're going to start the count in January in the very remote parts of Alaska and Maine, because there are little villages up there where they actually have to go, you know, foot, horseback, however, they're going to be able to find people and count them. So they'll actually start the count in Maine. And then, like I said, there's in Alaska in January. Then all along, there's all of these different measures and all of these different areas and special populations that they know they have to work on, including group quarters and others. So I encourage you guys to continue to speak, to have the conversation, to be able to work with your school district. One of the things we are talking, and Owen's been helpful as well, getting with the school boards and the PTAs, is to encourage our school districts to think about doing a census week in either March, you know, probably March makes sense, or April. But the Census Bureau on its website has all sorts of information, but there's a whole website on there for all sorts of school and data, statistics. And so there's actually curriculum on there for all different grade levels, where you can incorporate census data into a statistics class, or a history class, or an English class. At all different grade levels. They even have now come up with a census song. I am not going to sing it for you. Yeah, that goes beyond my responsibilities here. But again, all sorts of information. There's posters on the website. There's actually posters for multifamily property managers. We're actually going to work with the Building Realty Institute in the spring to get posters up by mailboxes and multifamily buildings to just do whatever we can to encourage people to be aware of the fact, to watch for this information and try to respond. Okay.
Thanks very much,
Thank
Carl.
Wow, thank you.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Good luck talking with all the other communities.
By the way, in February, probably in February, we're going to try to get it to all the senior centers because it's going to be really, really important for us to help those seniors. Not just to help, not just understand that the census is coming, but what to ask for. Look for an ID.
Right.
The fact, what they should not be asking you for. They should never ask you for a social security number. They should never ask you for a credit card. But so we're going to spend a lot of time in the senior centers making sure we're educating seniors about what to expect because we know, unfortunately, they are very, very vulnerable to scams. Yes, sorry. One of the most undercounted populations, and we know this because we get birth certificate records, children under 5 are one of the worst counted groups. And we think it's because parents just think, well, they're not in school yet, so what does it matter? But when you think about it, how do you plan for your schools for the next couple of years? You need to know how many births there are and how many kids are coming in the next couple of years, particularly in districts like Portchester where they're bursting at the seams. So, so children under 5, thank you, are one of the worst counted populations, and we want to make sure that we correct that. But think about it. How did you all learn to recycle? Your children or grandchildren came home and said, Mom, do you know how many water bottles are floating around in the ocean? That's how we're hoping some people will learn about the census. If the kids can come home and say, Mom, you're supposed to complete the census. Did you do it? It's really important. Do you know what it gets used for? Just think of that and the great tool that kids will be in helping us get a good count this time around. Now I'm really done.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Okay. On to our regular agenda. There's nobody from the public here, so we'll move on to a public hearing on residency requirements. Rich, you want to just summarize this, what we're doing here?
During a couple of recent hiring. During some recent hiring to fill vacancies, we've discovered that some positions are either not correctly listed under the code or some other positions are not public officers, which means they don't have to live in New York State. So this would change the law to allow for those provisions to be amended to comply with New York State law.
Okay, so I'm going to take a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby amend the Code of the Village of Tarrytown, Chapter 52, Residency Requirements, Section 52-2, Village, County, or bordering county residency, for the purpose to remove the position of Superintendent of Public Works from this requirement, since this position is not a public officer under the definition of the law. Therefore, the person in this position is not required to live in New York State. Whereas a public hearing was held for the proposed action on October 21, 2019, and whereas a notice of public hearing was published in the Journal News on October 11, 2019, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is the only agency which has approval authority over the proposed action, and is therefore the lead agency for the proposed action. Now therefore be resolved as follows, in accordance with Article 8 of the State Environmental Conservation Law and 6 NYCRR, Part 617, including without limitations the criteria set forth in 6 NYCRR, Part 617.7C. And based upon review of the proposed action, the Village Board of Trustees hereby determines that the proposed action will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment and hereby adopts a negative declaration. And now therefore be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby adopt local law number 10 of 2019.
So moved.
All in favor? Next, we have fire department membership changes. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve the following fire department membership changes recommended at the September 17, 2019 Board of Fire Wardens meeting. Members, Raider de la Cruz has been approved for out-of-town membership at Washington Engine. Victor Vera has resigned from Washington Engine, and John Pardo's membership at Washington Engine has been changed from active to associate.
Second.
All in favor? Next, we're appointing a part-time building inspector. Whereas due to the anticipated long-term absence of our building inspector and backlog building permit inspections for the village of Tarrytown, the village finds a need to have temporary building inspector services in order to maintain the workload and operations of the building permit and inspection services provided by the village in his absence. Therefore, be it resolved, the village of Tarrytown hereby appoints Peter Cook on a part-time availability basis, not to exceed 17.5 hours per week at an hourly rate of $45 per hour for part-time building permit and inspection services, subject to the provisions and regulations of civil service.
And just for the record, right now, discussing this with Dan, our understanding is we'll have this person 1 day a week, usually about 4 or 5 hours a week.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the title correct, building inspector? We only have one building inspector,
Yes, and he's currently out on injury.
but I'm confused now.
It's a part-time backfill to keep,
That's not my question. The question is, we have a title, right, which is
Yes.
Dan is in, it's called building inspector.
Dan is the village engineer / building inspector. We have
Okay.
one building inspector, that's Mr. Valvano.
So, is this person the building inspector or deputy?
He's a part-time fill-in. They allow that
The
in
current-
somebody's
the current-
absence.
the
Building
current-
inspector, not
Yes.
deputy building inspector.
No, he's a part-time fill-in building inspector in the absence of the current building inspector. The civil service does allow that.
So the title would be
The
building
title
inspector.
is building
So we
inspector.
have two building inspectors.
Correct.
Okay.
How did we get to that hourly rate? I don't remember that being
Hmm.
discussed.
That's based on what he's currently making now.
You know, I don't remember that being discussed.
No, it wasn't brought up. Again, we're talking about 4 or 5 hours a week.
No, I understand that, but that salary, that dollar
Yeah.
amount was never brought up, and now I'm getting hit with it for the first time tonight, so that's kinda, all right, you know.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Why don't you go across the table?
Tom? You aye or
Aye.
Becky's aye.
Tom?
Tom?
I abstain. I'm confused by this whole
Do we
thing.
have a meeting Wednesday night?
It was discussed at the work session, just not the rate.
What?
It was discussed at the work session, just not the
Correct,
rate.
the position was, but the rate wasn't.
Well, it's not even a permanent position, it's a temporary thing while the person's out.
I understand that, but that
Okay.
rate was never discussed.
You know, I changed that, I'm okay with it. This is crazy.
I'm voting yes, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that was never discussed.
Okay.
I know Dean and I need the
This
help.
is crazy.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution authorizing the Westchester County intermunicipal agreement, IMA, with the village of Tarrytown with respect to this 2019 summer day camp. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize the village administrator to sign a Westchester County intermunicipal agreement, IMA, with the village of Tarrytown with respect to the 2019 Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow summer day camp.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
And the minutes. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees held on October 7th, 2019, as submitted by the village clerk.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the vouchers. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve abstract number 7 of audited vouchers in the total amount of $694,631.33 as presented by the village treasurer.
So moved.
Second.
Paul?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes, but I'm gonna abstain from voucher 201-80-11160 for Elizabeth Masha. My daughter-in-law works for Elizabeth Masha.
Okay. And there's no members of the public present, so I'll take a motion to adjourn to executive, you need to adjourn to executive session?
Yes.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Good night, and
Good night,
we will-
everybody.
we won't be
Good night.
returning to the.
See you at the Halloween
campus.
parade.
Do I want to see you?
Still on.
That's okay, we're doing some